The autumn of 1865 brought more than falling leaves to the frontier. It brought broken men home from war and desperate souls seeking new beginnings. At Devil's Creek, where the railroad camp sprawled like an ugly scar across the prairie, both kinds of broken met Captain James Hartley had been riding for 3 days. His Union blues dusty and worn, the war technically over but still raging in his dreams. He'd stopped at the creek to water his horse when he heard a sound that made his soldier's instincts flare. A struggle. A woman's voice tight with fear. He moved through the cottonwoods, silent as smoke, hand on his pistol. In the clearing ahead, 3 men circled someone on the ground. Railroad workers, by the look of them, drunk on cheap whiskey and cheaper cruelty. "Come on, pretty thing," one slurred. "Just want to see if the stories are true, please." The woman's voice was hollow, defeated. "Just kill me fast. I'm tired of running." Those words, that tone of someone who'd given up, hit James harder than any battle cry. He stepped into the clearing. Step away from her. 3 heads turned. 3 men sized him up, 1 soldier against 3. They liked those odds. "This ain't your business, soldier boy," the largest one said. "This here's railroad property. People aren't property," James said quietly. "Not anymore. War's over. Not for her kind." The woman looked up then, and James saw her face. Young, maybe 25, with dark hair tangled and wild. But it was her eyes that caught him, gray as storm clouds, empty as a burned-out house. "Please," she whispered. But he couldn't tell if she was begging him to help or to let them finish what they'd started. "I," said, "step away." The big man laughed. "You want to die for some branded woman? You don't even know what she..." James drew and fired in one motion. The shot echoed across the creek, sending birds scattering. The bullet hit the ground between the big man's feet. "Next one goes higher," James said. "Your choice." They ran. Cowards always did when faced with someone who'd already seen hell, and they're gone. "You're safe now," she laughed, bitter as winter wind. "Safe. You don't know what that word means?" "Not for someone like me." "Then tell me." She studied his face, searching for something. "You really want to know? Want to see what makes men think they can do whatever they want to me?" Before he could answer, she pulled up the hem of her torn skirt, revealing her ankle. There, burned into the skin, in ugly raised scars, was a brand. "Our RP Railroad property." James's stomach turned. He'd seen brands on cattle, on horses, but on a person... Satisfied? She dropped her skirt, eyes challenging. "Still want to play hero? What's your name?" The question seemed to surprise her. "Does it matter?" "Everything matters." She was quiet so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then Rose. "My name was Rose." "Was?" "Rose died the day they put that iron to her skin. I don't know who I am now." James pulled off his coat, wrapped it around her shoulders. "Well, Rose, who doesn't know who she is? I'm James, and I'm going to get you somewhere safe." "There is no safe. Not when you're branded. They'll always come looking. Always claim what they think they own. Then we'll go, or they can't follow." She looked at him like he was speaking a foreign language. "Why would you help me?" He thought of all the complicated answers, duty, honor. The weight of a war fought to end slavery, only to find it wearing different faces. But what came out was simple, because you asked them to kill you fast. And I think anyone who's been hurt that badly deserves a chance to remember what it's like to want to live slow. For the first time, something flickered in those storm cloud eyes. Not quite hope, but maybe the memory of it. The cabin in the hills. James had a place 20 miles north. Cabin he'd bought with his mustering out pay. He'd planned to ranch, maybe forget the war and the simple rhythm of seasons. Now he had a different kind of wounded to tend. Rose rode behind him on his horse, tense as a bowstring. Every sound made her flinch. When they stopped to rest, she wouldn't meet his eyes. "How long?" he asked finally. 2 years. Her voice was flat. "Railroad bought my contract from the state prison. Said I'd work off my sentence." "What was your crime?" "Being hungry. Stole bread in Kansas City." She laughed, that bitter sound again. "Judge gave me 5 years. Railroad boss said he'd make it 2 if I was, accommodating. James's hands tightened on the reins. And the brand? First time I tried to run. Boss said if I was going to act like property, he'd mark me as such. Had his boys hold me down while he did it himself? The matter-of-fact way she told it was worse than tears would have been. James had seen men break under torture. But this quiet acceptance of cruelty as normal, this was its own kind of wound. "We'll be at my place soon," he said. "You can rest. Figure out what comes next. What comes next is they'll find me. And when they do, they'll kill you for helping me. Let them try." She studied him then, really looked. "You're not afraid of dying? No? Why?" He was quiet for a long moment. Spent 4 years sending boys to their deaths. Watching them die for causes they barely understood. Fear of my own death got burned out somewhere between Antietam and Appomattox. "Must be nice," she said softly. "Not being afraid. I didn't say I wasn't afraid. Just not of dying? Then what?" He looked at her, this woman who'd been branded like cattle, who'd asked for death like a mercy. "I'm afraid of living in a world where people can do what they did too. You and call it legal?" Something shifted in her face then. Just a flicker. But for the first time, she looked at him like he might be real. Learning to trust the cabin was small but solid. It's built into a hillside with a clear view of the valley below. James gave Rose the bed, made himself a pallet by the fire. She protested, but he wouldn't hear it. "You need proper rest," he said. "When's the last time you slept in a real bed?" She couldn't remember days past in careful routine. James worked his small herd of cattle, always keeping the cabin in sight. Rose cleaned, cooked, mended his clothes with fingers that slowly remembered gentle tasks. They spoke little, but the silence wasn't uncomfortable at night, though. The darkness brought demons. James woke to her screaming, fighting invisible hands. He lit a lantern, called her name soft and steady, until she surfaced from whatever nightmare held her. "I'm sorry," she gasped. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to wake. Don't apologize. Not for that. Not ever." She pulled her knees to her chest, making herself small. "They come for me in dreams. All of them. Every man who thought the brand meant permission." James wanted to touch her, to offer comfort, but knew better. "They can't hurt you here, can't they?" She looked at him with those storm cloud eyes. "You're a good man, James Hartley. But good men don't last long in this world. Neither do branded women who refuse to break. Yet here you are." "I did break. The day I asked those men to kill me, that was me broken." "No." His voice was firm. "That was you tired. There's a difference. Broken things can't be fixed. Tired things just need rest." She stared at him. "You really believe that?" "I have to. Otherwise, what was the point of any of it? The war, the dying, the trying to build something better. Maybe there wasn't a point. Maybe the world's just cruel. Maybe. But you still made coffee this morning. Still watched the sunset yesterday. Still flinched when that hawk cried, because some part of you wants to stay alert, stay alive. That's not broken, Rose. That's human." She was crying then, silent tears that seemed surprised to exist. James still didn't touch her, but he stayed there, steady as stone, until the tears stopped. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me as human." The words broke his heart clean through. The past returns they. Dee had 3 weeks of peace when the past came calling. James saw the dust cloud from the ridge where he was checking fence lines. 3 riders, moving fast and purposeful. He raced back to the cabin. "Rose." "Riders coming?" She went white. "They found me. Get inside. Bar the door. No matter what you hear, don't come out." "James, no. You don't understand. These aren't just railroad thugs. The man who branded me, he's connected. Powerful. He won't stop. Neither will I." She grabbed his arm. "Please, just let them take me. I'm not worth dying for." He covered her hand with his. "You're worth living for. Now get inside." The riders pulled up in his yard like they owned it. James recognized the type-hired guns with badges. The kind of law that could be bought and sold. Captain Hartley, the lead writer said. Name's Morrison, U.S. Marshal. He flashed a badge that might have been real. We're looking for escaped property. This is America, Marshal. We don't have property that can escape anymore, Morrison smiled, cold as winter. Railroad property, Captain. A woman under legal contract who fled her obligations. Goes by Rose. Never heard of her? Funny? Tracks led right here? Morrison dismounted, hand casual on his gun. Mind if we look around? Yes, excuse me? Mind. This is private property. You want to search it? Get a warrant. Morrison's smile widened. Captain, you seem like a reasonable man. War hero, from what I hear. Be a shame if you got tangled up in this. The woman's a thief and a whore. Branded as such. Why throw away your life for that? James stepped forward. Get off my land or what? You'll shoot a U.S. Marshal? If I have to? The other two riders shifted, hands moving to weapons. The moment stretched taut. Then the cabin door opened. Stop. Rose stood there, James's rifle in her hands. I won't have blood spilled for me, Rose. Get back inside. But she was already walking forward, rifle steady. Hello, Morrison. Still doing Garrett's dirty work? Miss Rose. Morrison tipped his hat mockingly. Mr. Garrett's been worried about you. Wants you back home? That's not my home. And I'm not his property. Brand says different. Brand says, I survived a monster. Nothing more. She kept the rifle trained on Morrison. Tell Garrett I'm dead. Tell him you found my body in the creek. Tell him whatever you want. But I'm not going back. Morrison laughed. You think you got a choice? You think this broken-down soldier can protect you? Garrett owns judges, lawmen, half the territory. You run, we'll find you. You hide, we'll burn you out. Only way this ends is you coming back where you belong. Then I guess it doesn't end, James said quietly. He'd moved while they focused on Rose, now stood between her and the riders. Because she's not going anywhere. 3 against 2, Captain. And one of you's just a woman. Rose chambered around. Woman who learned to shoot from railroad guards. Want to test how well they taught me? The standoff held. Wind whispered through the grass. Somewhere, a meadowlark sang. Finally, Morrison stepped back. This isn't over. Garrett don't like losing property. Tell Garrett if he wants her, he'll have to go through me, James said. And I've got nothing left to lose. Morrison studied him. Saw something that made him nod slowly. 3 days, Captain. You've got 3 days to reconsider. After that, ... he shrugged. Heroes die same as everyone else? They rode off. Dust settling in their wake like a promise of violence to come. The truth in the dark that night. Rose couldn't stop shaking. James built up the fire, made coffee strong enough to strip paint, but nothing helped. You should run, she said. Take your cattle, what money you have. Start over somewhere they won't find you, no. James, please. You don't understand what Garrett's capable of. The brand that was just the beginning. The things he did, the things he let others do. ... She wrapped her arms around herself. I'm poison. Everything I touch gets ruined. Tell me. What? Tell me all of it. The whole truth. Let me decide what I can live with. She looked at him for a long moment. Then, in a voice hollow as an empty grave, she began. She told him about the prison. About Garrett buying her contract along with a dozen other women. About the promises of honest work that turned into something else. About the first time she fought back and the beating that followed. About the brand, held to her skin while men laughed. She told him about the nights when railroad crews would pay. Garrett for time with his property. About trying to run and being dragged back. About the other women who didn't survive. She told him everything. Each word a stone added to the wall between them. When she finished, the cabin was silent except for the pop of the fire. Say something, she whispered. James stood, crossed to where she sat. Slowly, giving her time to pull away, he knelt before her chair. May I? He gestured to her ankle. She nodded, confused. Gently, he lifted her foot, pushed back the fabric to reveal the brand. Then, to her shock, he pressed his lips to the scarred skin. "What are you doing?" Her voice broke. "Honoring a survivor." He looked up at her, eyes fierce with emotion. "This isn't a mark of shame, Rose. It's proof of what you endured. What you survived. What they couldn't break, no matter how hard they tried. But you're the strongest person I've ever met. And if Garrett thinks he can take you back, he'll have to kill me first. That's what I'm afraid of. Then we'll face that fear together. Because I'd rather die defending your freedom than live knowing I let them take it." She slid from the chair to her knees, facing him. "Why? Why do you care so much?" He was quiet for a moment. "My sister, Sarah. She was 16 when the war started. Some Confederate raiders came through our farm. They, ... He stopped, swallowed hard. "She didn't survive what they did to her. But before she died, she made me promise. Promise to never let anyone hurt another woman the way they hurt her. Not if I could stop it, James? ... I couldn't save Sarah, but maybe I can save you. Maybe that's why I survived the war when so many didn't. Maybe this is my chance to keep that promise." Rose touched his face, her fingers trembling. "I don't know how to be saved. Then we'll learn together. Because I don't know how to stop trying." She kissed him then, soft and desperate and tasting of tears. When they pulled apart, something had shifted between them. The wall she'd built with her words had crumbled, replaced by something fragile but real. 3 days, she said. "Morrison gave us 3 days. Then we'd better make them count." Love in the shadow of violence, they spent those 3 days like people who knew time was precious. James taught Rose to shoot properly, to hit what she aimed at. She taught him to laugh again, to find joy in small things, the way morning light caught in her hair, the sound of her humming while she cooked. They didn't speak of love. The word seemed too small for what grew between them. Instead, they showed it in actions, the way he always positioned himself between her and any door. The way she'd taken to cutting his hair with gentle fingers. On the second night, she came to him by the fire. "I want to tell you something," she said. "Before whatever happens tomorrow." He set aside the rifle he'd been cleaning. "I'm listening. My real name. It's not Rose. That's what Garrett called me. Said I was pretty as a rose, but needed thorns removed. She, the name, reclaimed. My real name is Grace," she said softly. "Grace Elizabeth Winters. I haven't spoken." Garrett raised an eyebrow. "Oh, single combat. Me against your best man. I win. You leave and never come back. You win. We go without a fight." Morrison laughed. "Captain, there's 8 of us." "Why would we agree to that?" "Because you're not the only one with friends." James whistled. Sharp and clear. From the rocks above the cabin, from the barn, from positions all around the yard, men emerged. His old unit, the ones who'd survived the war and settled nearby. Tom Martinez, Ben Cooper. The Johnson brothers' men who'd answered his call because soldiers don't abandon their own. Seems more even now. James said quietly. Garrett's face went red. "This is kidnapping, theft. I'll have the law." "I am the law," a new voice said. Sheriff William Tate rode up, badge glinting real and honest in the morning sun. "Got word there might be trouble up here. Thought I'd investigate, Sheriff. This woman is escaped property. This woman is a free citizen of the United States." Tate dismounted, hand casual on his gun. "Checked the records myself. No legal contract exists. What you've been doing, Garrett, is slavery. And we fought a war about that. She's branded. Lots of folks got scars. Don't make them property." Tate looked at Morrison. "You boys got 2 choices. Ride out now, or I arrest the lot of you for attempted kidnapping." The moment stretched taut. 8 guns against 8, with Grace and the sheriff making 10. Even odds, but bloody ones. Then Ben Cooper spoke up. "Actually, Sheriff, it's not even odds." He grinned. "We got Sarah up in the rocks with her daddy's buffalo rifle. Best shot in 3 counties. A glint of sunlight on metal confirmed it." Garrett's men shifted nervously. "This isn't over," Garrett snarled. "Yes. It is. Grace stepped forward, rifle still ready. You want to know why? Because I'm done being afraid. Done running. Done letting you think you own me? She pulled up her skirt, showing the brand. This is just a scar. It doesn't define me. You don't define me? And if you come back, if you ever threaten me or anyone I love again, I'll kill you myself. Something in her voice, the absolute certainty, made. Garrett stepped back. You're making a mistake, he said. All of you. I have influence, money, and I have friends, James said simply. Real ones. The kind money can't buy. Now get off my land before we test how much your influence matters to bullets. Morrison made the smart choice. Come on, Mr. Garrett, not worth dying over one woman. She's not just one woman. Garrett's composure finally cracked. She's mine. I paid for her. Marked her. And now she's free, Sheriff Tate said. Unless you'd like to explain to a judge about buying and branding women. Pretty sure that's a hanging offense these days? That did it. Garrett climbed back in his wagon, but not before throwing one last look of pure venom at Grace. You'll regret this. No, she said quietly. I won't. They left in a cloud of dust and defeated fury. James's friends stayed until the riders were specks on the horizon, then melted away with nods and touches to hat brims. The way of men who understood some debts can't be spoken. Sheriff Tate was last to go. Ma'am, he said to Grace, you need anything? You let me know. This county don't tolerate men like Garrett. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me. Thank the captain here. He rode 2 days to find me, told me everything. Man who will do that for someone is worth keeping around. After he left, Grace and James stood alone in their yard, the morning sun painting everything gold. It's over, she said, disbelieving. The running is. The healing. That'll take time. She turned to him. I have time now. Thanks to you, thanks to us, and our friends. Turns out we're not as alone as we thought. No, she agreed. We're not. The letter 6 months later, spring painted the valley in wildflowers. Grace she'd legally reclaimed her name stood in the garden she'd planted. Reading a letter that had come from Kansas City, James found her there. Tears on her cheeks but a smile on her lips. What is it? She handed him the letter. It's from a lawyer. Garrett's dead. James read quickly. Thomas Garrett had been found in an alley, killed by persons unknown. The investigation suggested he'd been selling women to brothels across the frontier. One of them had finally fought back. The lawyer says several women have come forward. Women like me, branded. The railroad's paying settlements to avoid scandal. She laughed, shaky but real. They're offering me $5,000. That's enough to start over anywhere. Yes. She looked at him, those storm cloud eyes now clear as summer sky. So I guess the question is, where do we want to start? We, unless you want me to go? He pulled her close, kissed her soundly. Woman, you try to leave, and I'll follow you to the ends of the earth. Even with my past? Even with the brand? Especially with those. They're part of your story. Part of what made you strong enough to survive, to love again. He touched her face gently. Marry me, Grace. Let's build something good from all this pain. Yes, she whispered. Yes to all of it. They were married in the valley, surrounded by the men who'd stood with them and their families. Grace wore her mother's dress, sent from Kansas City, along with her mother's forgiveness and joy that her daughter lived. Sheriff Tate officiated. Ben Cooper's Sarah played fiddle. And when James kissed his bride, the cheer that went up could be heard clear to the mountains. Under the endless sky 5 years later, Grace stood on the same porch, but everything had changed. The cabin had grown into a proper house. The garden sprawled green and abundant, and in her arms she held their daughter Sarah Grace Hartley, named for the lost and the found. James rode up from checking the expanded herd, their son Thomas bouncing in the saddle before him. At 4, the boy had his father's steady nature and his mother's fierce spirit. Mama, Papa showed me an eagle, Grace corrected gently. How wonderful. James dismounted, lifted Thomas down to run to his mother. Then he wrapped his arms around his family, breathing in the moment. "Any word from the school?" he asked. Grace smiled. "They accepted our proposal. The Grace Hartley School for Women will open next fall." It had been her dream. Using the settlement money and their ranch profits to build a school for women with nowhere else to go. Women with pasts, with scars, visible and invisible. A place where they could learn skills, find safety, remember their worth. "I'm proud of you," James said. "We did this together." "No, I gave you a place to heal. You're giving dozens of women the same chance. That's all you." She leaned into him, watching their children play in the yard where armed men had once faced off. "Sometimes I can't believe we made it. Why not? We had love. And stubbornness, and really good friends with rifles," she laughed. "Is that the secret to happiness? Love, stubbornness, and armed backup. That and forgiveness of others, of ourselves." He kissed her temple. "You taught me that," as the sun set over their valley. Painting the sky in shades of hope, Grace touched the spot on her ankle where the brand had been. It was still there, would always be there. But now it was just one scar among many, the marks of a life fully lived, of love hard won, of grace discovered in the most unlikely places. "What are you thinking?" James asked. "That I'm glad they didn't kill me fast," she said softly. "Because then I would have missed all this slow, beautiful living." He held her tighter as their children's laughter rang across the prairie. And the endless sky blessed them with another day together to soul's hood, found each other in darkness, and chosen to walk together into the light. In the distance, a meadowlark sang its evening song. And Grace Elizabeth Winters Hartley knew with bone-deep certainty that she was finally, truly, completely free. Not because the brand was gone, it wasn't. Not because the memories had faded, they hadn't. But because she'd learned the greatest truth the frontier could teach. That love was stronger than ownership. That scars were just proof of survival. And that sometimes the most broken people could build the strongest homes as stars began to appear in the darkening sky. She whispered a prayer of gratitude for second chances, for men who saw women as human, and for the kind of love that could look at a brand and see not property, but promise.